Hello everyone, this is cztl and welcome to another Escape from Tarkov informational deep dive. Today we're going to be covering how health and damage works as of patch 12.12. Health and the way it works in Tarkov is dramatically different from any other game that I've played. It is very complex and there are a lot of things to consider when trying to combat enemies, but also to manage your own health. The health system was recently reworked near patch 12.11.2. And there was nothing in the patch notes besides a tweet from Battlestate Games on Twitter. And when I say reworked, I mean changed enough so that I altered my playstyle. Let's start off by going over your starting health pool. It's comprised of 7 different limbs, each having their own health pool. You will die in Tarkov if your thorax or your head is reduced to 0 hit points, with one exception. As of this video, there is what I consider a bug in the game, where a bleed can bring the health of your head or thorax to 0, but not kill you, even if you continue to bleed. Together, all these will add up to your character's total health. Each body part can separately take different types of damage, but we're only going to cover direct damage done by bullets or grenades right now. For all of my testing, I used 7.62 by 25 AKBS ammo. This does about 57 damage per round, although the wiki says 58. The steps that are taken when damage is dealt are as follows. Check to see if the current projectile damage does less than the hit points available on the body part that got hit. If it is, then apply the damage to the body part, and add any effects such as a fracture or a bleed. If the damage of the projectile is greater than the available hit points on the body part that got hit, first check to see if it was the head or the thorax, because it would bring it to 0, and therefore you would die. If it's not the head or the thorax, then apply overflow damage. Put simply, overflow damage is the negative amount left on the limb after all the damage is applied. So if there's 1 HP remaining on a limb and 57 damage was applied, you'd end up with negative 56 and therefore 56 overflow damage. Every body part has different multiplier values for the amount of overflow damage that would be distributed to the rest of the body. As of making this video, you would multiply any overflow damage coming from the stomach by 1.5, any overflow damage coming from the legs by 1.0, and any overflow damage coming from the arms by 0.7. The head and thorax obviously don't have any overflow damage multipliers because that would kill you. Here's where the recent changes come into play. It used to be that the overflow damage was dispersed to all the other limbs at a consistent percentage. That percentage was the remaining zone's max hit points divided by the body max hit points. Zones that were already zeroed were skipped and the damage was dropped. The first step that we need to take in calculating the new overflow damage is to sum up the total maximum HP, which is the maximum HP for each non-zeroed limb, all summed up together. Next, we need to calculate the percentage of each region by using the maximum limb HP divided by that total maximum we just calculated. That gives us the percentage that each limb will take. Finally, we need to multiply the amount of overflow hit points that we're taking by the limb multiplier, and then by that percentage. In this example, if we got hit in the right leg again for 57 damage, 4.5 damage would be dealt to the head, 11.1 damage would be dealt to the thorax, 9.14 damage would be dealt to the stomach, 7.84 damage would be dealt to each arm, and 8.493 damage would be dealt to the legs. Keep in mind that these are decimal points, and the game uses decimal points in these calculations, but it only displays rounded values. Another really important thing to be aware of is overflow damage to a limb that would cause it to overflow itself gets dropped. This means if we were to be hit in the left leg for 57 damage as well, and then hit in the right leg, our calculations would be the same. As our previous example, where all body parts were at full HP except for the right leg with 8 HP. That's because the left leg still has HP remaining on it and it's not zeroed. One thing to keep in mind is that CMS kits reduce the total HP for your limb, so your thorax will end up taking more damage next time you get shot, regardless of if it's in that limb or another blacked out limb. That does it for overflow damage. So the one last thing that gets checked is, does the overflow damage bring your head or your thorax to 0? If yes, you die. If not, you live on. Two more things to keep in mind. Remember when I said that a bleed can bring your head or thorax to 0? That zone is skipped when damage is applied, but all other zones will take damage that would have taken. The second thing is that bleeds, dehydration, and starvation will all deal damage to limbs equally at a consistent rate. Here are 4 key takeaways that I came away with this research. Having a head at 0 HP is better than having low health on the head, as when you get dealt direct damage there, typically you die anyway. The second is surgical kits are much better than CMS kits, because as of now, they restore around 33% more hit points. This will increase the maximum HP for that limb, meaning not as much will go to your thorax or head. The third is having many limbs at 1 health is much better than having one limb fully repaired and healed. The fourth is leg meta is now pretty viable, as not nearly as much damage gets dropped. And finally, I want to give a shout out to my girlfriend for being the recipient of all that damage, but also for creating a spreadsheet that models how overflow damage gets calculated. I'll put a link in the description for you to copy and to use as your own. And that does it for this video on health and damage in Tarkov. If you enjoyed this content, smash the like out of that shit button and consider subscribing for more content like this in the future. And as always, hope that you don't see me in Tarkov.